And now, after the speech last night, Trump blasted Biden on Truth Social. He was basically posting live in reaction to the Biden campaign speech, calling the State of the Union address an angry, polarizing, and hate-filled speech. Trump also slammed Biden for barely mentioning immigration or the border. Republican lawmakers booed President Biden when he brought up the Senate border deal. Watch this.
In November, my team began serious negotiation with a bipartisan group of senators. The result was a bipartisan bill with the toughest set of border security reforms we've ever seen. Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh? That conservatives got together and said it was a good bill? I'll be darned.
Joining me right now is South Carolina Congressman Ralph Norman, a member of the House Budget, Financial Services, and Rules Committees. Congressman, thanks very much for being here. What was your takeaway from the State of the Union?
Maria, Joe Biden, the premise of giving the State of the Union speech was to give an update on how he's addressing the problems of America, his vision for the future. What we got was another political speech. Nothing was mentioned about the border, the Chinese balloon that flew over this country, the inflation, the supply chain shortages, and the list goes on and on. But you could have turned on a recording of past politicians who gave canned speeches. It would have fit the day, and it was a sad day, but the bar was low for him anyway.
Well, to me, it felt more like a campaign speech than anything else. I mean, he kept trying to attack President Trump. He mentioned Ukraine's border more and earlier than even mentioning America's border. Fox News' Griff Jenkins was in Eagle Pass yesterday. He spoke to one Honduran migrant who was wearing a Biden-Harris 2020 T-shirt. At first, the man claimed not to even know who Biden and Harris were. Watch this interaction.
Es el presidente y la vicepresidenta de los Estados Unidos.
Ah, pero entonces ya lo traigo aquí para que me dejen entrar.
Congressman, your thoughts?
Well, where did he get that Biden-Harris shirt? Where did they get the shoes that they're wearing? Where did they get the food that they're eating? I mean, I've been to the border. It's an embarrassment. The taxpayers do not deserve having to pay for this. Who's paying for the airline flights? The taxpayers. So Joe Biden is just he's disconnected from America. He's not truthful. And that was on full display last night. He was propped up long enough, for 67 minutes, but 40 of it was just criticizing the Republicans and talking about his immigration bill. With a stroke of the pen, he could end the horror that's causing the death of Lakeland Riley, who he mispronounced the name, but he didn't do that, and that's how this man does.
You know, Newt Gingrich tweeted about those flights that you're referring to. The former Speaker of the House writes this: why is President Biden so desperate to have illegal immigrants in the United States that he would use taxpayer money to secretly fly 350,000 illegals in and then refuse to tell us who they are, where they went, and how much it cost? Are they going to use illegal immigrant votes to defeat Americans in the fall? That's what Newt Gingrich is writing this morning on X. Your reaction?
Well, that's exactly right. Why else would he be doing it? I've been to the border. They've got cardboard name tags with numbers on it. And when you look at them and try to take a picture of it, you have an American that comes up. No, it's strictly for voting power, strictly to retain, for the Democrats to retain their power. And they're putting them in states all over this country. And it's so unfair. The flight I was on from McAllen, Texas, most of them were illegal immigrants, didn't have really any form of identification that the taxpayers are paying for. It's really a crime.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned taxpayer IDs, because now AG Garland, Merrick Garland, is pledging to fight any laws that require a voter ID. I mean, you got to help me understand this. We are just a few months away from a presidential election, and they're outlawing using your ID to vote?
They give them a federal ID, Maria, and the worst part about it, they can vote and they can buy guns, firearms, which it's a national security threat what Joe Biden is doing to America. Wow. And it just should not happen. And the end of his reign of terror, hopefully, will end in November when Americans finally figure out that we cannot afford this, nor can we afford to have the terror threat that's now plaguing every American. And the threat is real and it's there.
And I know that you've been supporting Nikki Haley throughout this. Nikki Haley dropping out of the Republican presidential race this week. Congressman, you were the only GOP congressman to endorse Haley. Now you've endorsed President Trump, but Haley still has not. Are you expecting Haley supporters to move on to Trump?
You know, absolutely. The fact, this isn't Democrat or Republican, Maria, this is American. And the fact that when you have a comparison between Donald Trump, who the 4 years were great, and what Joe Biden has done to this country, I don't know how we walk it back. So I think all the supporters for Nikki will be on board, and I think that, you know, it's really no choice. Are you better off today than you were 4 years under Trump? Absolutely not. So I think the voters will express themselves. And Biden, I think he's disconnected from all that. His words will not explain the policies that he's inflicted on America.
Oh, how far America has fallen in these 3 years under Joe Biden and the Democrats. Joe Pinion, jump in here real quick.
I mean, quickly, Congressman, I know you listened to the speech last night from the president. We know the Constitution says the president shall, from time to time, give to Congress information on the state of the union. Many of us still waiting to get some type of acknowledgement of the reality facing everyday Americans. How do we make this pivot to get people in those key swing states to recognize just how bad things have been, but also, more importantly, how dishonest the narrative presented by the president was every single day, and certainly on full display in that speech?
Well, it was, and Americans are feeling it in their pocketbook. They're scared. You know, they're seeing on their families the negative effect that it's having. And so the fact that he says it's not true, he's the one that's not telling the truth, and he's not trying to address it. He can't. I don't think he understands it. He doesn't want to. His main goal is to remain in power, and the American people are going to get that, and I think they will express it in November.
Well, he tried certainly to use last night as an opportunity to do that, stay in power with that campaign speech. Congressman, thanks very much for being here. Ralph Norman joining us this morning.